Okay, so we're going to keep going. So let's go back and take a look at the next couple questions. So we're going to share that screen again. So here's the next one. The next one says, according to an article on CNN.com, the majority of U.S. teens are not sexually active. Study shows 52% of surveyed teenagers had never had sexual intercourse. A very large random sample of 16,262 high school students was the source of the information. What kind of bias do we have here? Again, there's a couple. The first one is definitely going to be under coverage, because in this case, it's under coverage because all we talked to were high school students. The article said teens. Well, the last time I checked, there are teens in middle school. There are teens in college. We didn't talk to them, so we're not getting their opinion. So right there is an undercoverage issue. We're undercovering middle schoolers, we're undercovering high schoolers who are also teenagers. I will also say that there's definitely a component of a response bias here. Here's the reason. People might not be inclined to answer honestly. Like if you're a teenager, it might be embarrassing to answer the question yes or no. Like, I mean, like it depends on who asks the question. You might answer the question the way you believe someone wants to hear it, that, oh, teenagers aren't having sex. So that's one of those things where you got to be careful in the way that this is designed. So there's a couple things. The first one is under coverage because, you know, we're not covering the middle schoolers and the college kids. And there's also a component of a response bias here because we're not, like, basically, we might not be giving a valid answer to it. So, so that's number 5. Number 6, a new and somewhat controversial polling procedure that replaces the phone with the internet is being used to conduct public opinion polls. The article, pollsters fear internet numbers offer warped views, states that many pollsters say internet users as a whole are still too upper income, highly educated, white, and urban to produce results that accurately reflect all Americans. What's more, while 94% of US households had a telephone in 1998, only 26% had internet access, according to the US Department of Commerce study. What type of bias is there? Again, a lot of times what's going to happen, it almost spells it out in here. It's definitely an undercoverage issue. We're undercovering people who don't have internet access. So, I mean, if I can't be part of the survey because it's done online, my opinion is not going to matter in this case. So again, undercoverage, we're definitely undercovering. We're undercovering a population. It's explicitly here, 26%. Now, I know this is an old article, but still, even if this thing was at 76% now, which seems like more reasonable, that still means a quarter of your population doesn't have internet, which means they couldn't be part of this study, so you're undercovering them. Number 7, the article study provides new data on the extent of gambling by college athletes. Reported 72% of college football and basketball players had bet money at least once since entering college. This conclusion was based on a study in which copies of the survey were mailed to 3,000 athletes in 182 Division I institutions, 25% of whom responded. Again, so if you want to think about this, there is definitely an issue of non-response. Without question, there is non-response. Non-response because 75% did not reply. So we're definitely underselling the true opinion here. What else is there? In this case, there's definitely response. There's definitely response bias in this one, because if you think about it, you're asking someone if they do something that would theoretically be considered bad, like betting in college could be perceived as bad. If you're an athlete, you could get in trouble for betting, especially if you were betting on like college football and you were a football player, or college basketball and you were a basketball player. So there's definitely a response bias here. So again, in this case, we're talking college football and basketball players. So we even add another aspect to it. There is under coverage here. Because realistically, when you look at this, we're not talking to women's sports at all. We're talking to primarily, I mean, I guess we could with the college basketball players, but the implication here seems like it's primarily male. So we're not talking to women's sports or some of the lower tier men's sports. So like, we're not talking to, like, you know, swimmers or baseball players or lacrosse players or soccer players. We're only focusing there. So there's definitely an issue of undercoverage. So if you think about it, all these things kind of pile up. And the way you need to think about it is pick one and explain how that is impacted. Now, the last one's all about wording bias. Okay. And what wording bias is basically the way you word the question suggests what the response is going to be. So in this case, if we look at this, the first question, should companies that pollute the environment be compelled to pay the cost of the cleanup? Okay, can I tell you something that is worded right away? You're making the accusation that companies pollute. So you're automatically putting the companies as like they're doing the bad thing. Should they be responsible? There's ways you could word it that would be better. Should companies have to pay for pollution cleanup? This one blames them. So you're almost directing people to say, well, yeah, if you make a mess, you should clean it up. What you really want to know is you want to know if pollution cleanup should be covered by companies. So that's a wording bias. Given that 18-year-olds are old enough to vote and serve in the military, is it fair to set the drinking age at 21? Again, you're teeing the question up for the response you want. It's like, yeah, if I have to serve in the military, yeah, if I have to, if I can vote, why can't I drink? What the question should really be is, should the drinking age be 21? You haven't influenced the results at all. You get a yes or no there. Do you think high school students should be required to wear uniforms? Okay. I mean, like, I'd probably stay away from required. Required kind of has a connotation to it. I might want to say, do you believe there should be uniforms in high schools? Do you believe there should be uniforms in high schools? You haven't put that required on it. And then letter D, given humanity's great tradition of exploration, do you favor continued funding for spaceflight? Again, you're teeing up the answer, this beginning part, given humanity's great tradition of exploration. You're basically saying, look how awesome it is that we explored. Hey, should we keep doing it? So you're kind of teeing it up to that positive response. What we should probably say is, should we continue to fund space flights? Period. End of story. So those are some of your biases. Hopefully that helps a little bit. We'll keep moving on into experiments in our next one.